There's a pattern that repeats itself in every relationship where one person starts to pull away. The moment you reclaim your energy, the other feels the shift. Not immediately, but inevitably, because human nature is designed to crave what withdraws, to value what isn't easily available. And when you stop chasing, when you stop pleading for attention, that's when the real power dynamic changes. At first, he won't miss you. He'll wonder about you. He'll wonder why your energy feels different. He'll test your silence. He'll send small signals, a message, a like, a story view, not because he's ready to return, but because he's checking if he still holds influence. Don't mistake this for love. It's a probe, not pursuit. He's measuring your emotional temperature, and this is where most people fail. They break the silence too soon. You see, when you hold your ground, you communicate something more powerful than words, self-respect. You're saying, I will not negotiate my worth for temporary comfort. That's strength, not the loud emotional kind, but the calm, grounded kind that commands attention without begging for it. This is where discipline enters the equation. Emotional discipline is the quiet force that reshapes every dynamic in your life. When you stop reacting to every move he makes, you start leading the interaction. The moment you stop seeking closure from someone who's uncertain about you, you become the standard he measures against. Men are drawn not to neediness, but to mystery, to the one who doesn't explain, doesn't justify, doesn't overextend. When you detach from proving your value and start embodying it, you shift from the chaser to the chooser. That's when attraction turns into longing, because longing is born from scarcity, and your absence creates it. But understand this clearly, he won't return until his ego breaks before his curiosity does, until he realizes that your silence is not punishment but peace, until he feels that the world is quieter without your energy in it. That's when missing you becomes unbearable, not because he's lonely, but because he now sees what he took for granted. People often say, if he misses me, he'll come back. That's not entirely true. He'll only come back when you've stopped waiting, when your life expands without him, when your growth, your focus, your light, and your confidence become louder than your pain. That's when the balance of power shifts. This isn't about manipulation, it's about transformation. The goal isn't to make him chase. The goal is to become someone who no longer needs to be chased, to evolve beyond the version of yourself that tolerated confusion and accepted half effort. He will always do one thing before he misses you enough to return. He will test your boundary. He'll check if the door is still open, if your emotions are still accessible. If you respond instantly, if you explain, if you try to fix things, he learns that he can lose you without consequence. But when you stay silent, when your energy remains unshaken, when your peace becomes your statement, that's when he begins to feel the loss. And that loss doesn't come from your words, it comes from your absence. It comes from realizing that your attention was a privilege, not a guarantee. The hardest part of this journey is not letting go of him. It's letting go of the version of you that kept trying to be enough for someone who wasn't ready. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth, you start living it. You become magnetic, not because you want him back, but because you no longer need him to feel whole. So when he circles back, and he will, don't let nostalgia rewrite history. Remember that the silence you kept wasn't coldness, it was clarity. It was your soul demanding balance. It was your self-worth declaring independence. The truth is simple. He'll only return when you no longer wait for him to. When your life becomes evidence that peace, growth, and power exist without his validation. That's when the chase reverses, not because you play games, but because you mastered yourself. In the end, it's not about whether he comes back. It's about who you become in the process of letting him go. You don't heal to attract him again. You heal to attract better. You evolve to stand taller, speak less, and live with quiet confidence. And that is the point he finally understands. The woman he left no longer exists. Silence didn't change him. It transformed you. Most people think distance means the end. They think when someone pulls away, they're gone for good. That silence equals disinterest. That space means they've moved on. But the truth is far more complex. Distance is not disconnection, it's perspective. It's the space where clarity is born, where truth replaces illusion, and where emotion reveals its depth through absence of noise. When you step back from someone, out of missing, but out of realizing how much your presence grounded them, realizing how much your energy gave balance to the connection. Reflection begins when the noise stops. But here's where most people fail. They break the distance too soon. They panic. They think if they don't reach out, they'll lose everything. That fear is the enemy of strength, because every time you chase clarity through contact, you kill curiosity through comfort. Let the distance breathe. Let the space do its work. What you resist revealing in desperation, time will reveal in truth. When you withdraw from someone, you give them a rare opportunity to confront themselves, to face what they contributed, what they ignored, what they took for granted. And sometimes that reflection hurts. It should. Growth doesn't come from comfort. Distance forces the mind to revisit what was real and what was routine. It exposes who truly valued you and who only valued your accessibility. If someone truly cared, distance won't erase you, it will magnify you. It will make them realize that your energy wasn't replaceable, that your silence has weight. But if they forget you easily, that's not loss. That's liberation, because you were never meant to build peace with someone who couldn't feel your worth in your absence. Distance isn't meant to make them chase. It's meant to make you reclaim yourself. To stop revolving around what you can't control and start mastering what you can, your focus, your growth, your composure. When you stop over-explaining and start observing, you stop bleeding energy for validation. You start moving with purpose instead of reaction. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to be remembered, you become unforgettable. The moment you detach with grace, not anger, you leave an impression that lingers long after you're gone. Because true strength is not in holding tighter, it's in letting go with dignity. Broad distance reveals truth. It shows willing to meet you halfway and who disappears when effort is no longer one-sided. It shows who's curious enough to understand your silence and who replaces it with noise. Most importantly, it shows you what you are giving to someone who might not have deserved that much access. The mature response to emotional distance is not panic, it's patience. Patience with yourself, patience with the process, patience with the lesson. The right people don't vanish because of distance. They reflect, adjust, and return with clarity. The wrong ones drift away because they were never anchored in depth. Either way, you win because you find truth. You're not losing them. You're finding yourself. You're not becoming invisible. You're becoming powerful. Because the one who can stay calm in silence, the one who doesn't break under emotional uncertainty, that person commands respect without speaking a word. Distance is not absence. It's awareness. It doesn't erase connection. It reveals it. It doesn't destroy. Value, it defines it. So don't fear the space. Let it refine your strength. Let it show you who sees your worth without constant reminders. And remember this, those who are truly aligned with you won't need to be chased. The distance will bring them back, not because you demanded it, but because reflection led them there. Distance doesn't end things, it exposes what's real. It turns confusion into clarity, noise into understanding, and attachment into power. It's a truth that echoes across every relationship, every power dynamic, every emotional connection. People rarely appreciate what's always there. Constant availability breeds comfort, and comfort dulls curiosity. What we take for granted, we stop fighting for. What feels permanent, we stop protecting. That's why the moment you pull your energy back, everything changes. Because when a man no longer feels entitled to your presence, he begins to value it. You see, men, like all human beings, are wired to pursue what challenges them, but that pursuit dies the moment they feel guaranteed. When you overgive, over-explain, over-invest, you strip away the very element that fuels respect, uncertainty. He stops seeing you as a privilege and starts seeing you as an option, not because he's cruel, but because you've made your value too accessible. The most powerful shift happens when you stop feeding his comfort and start feeding your boundaries. When you no longer chase, justify, or prove your worth, that's when he starts to notice the silence, the lack of your validation, the absence of your softness. And suddenly what he took for granted becomes what he can't stop thinking about, because nothing triggers reflection in a man faster than the quiet withdrawal of genuine energy. A man believes you'll never walk away, he stops showing up. But when your presence is no longer guaranteed, when your peace becomes more important than his approval, that's when the tables turn. Fear enters his mind. The fear of losing something real, the fear of realizing too late what he should have protected sooner. That fear is not manipulation, it's awareness, it's the awakening of respect. Understand this, you cannot convince someone to value you through words. You can only make them feel your absence. You can only teach through consequence. When you stop rescuing them from discomfort, they finally sit with it. They finally understand what you brought to the table. And that understanding doesn't come through confrontation. It comes through silence. The moment you walk away with composure, you communicate everything words could never express. You say, I'm not waiting to be chosen. I already am. You say, I don't need to prove my worth. I embody it. And that calm confidence hits deeper than any argument because it speaks from power, not pain. A man doesn't change because you cry louder or care harder. He changes when he feels your absence more than your presence. When he realizes that the one who stood by him, listened, supported, and understood him is no longer there. That's when he begins to value what was once free. But here's the trap. Many people break the silence too soon. They want him to understand before he's ready. They want closure, clarity, reassurance. Yet reflection doesn't work on your timeline. It works on distance. It works when he's left alone with his thoughts long enough to feel the void you once filled. When he fears losing you, he doesn't just miss your face. He misses the peace you brought. The grounding, the emotional balance, the quiet strength that made his world feel stable. That's when he starts questioning everything. Was she really gone? Did I push too far? Did I underestimate her? Those questions are not born from guilt. They're born from realization. And realization only comes after consequence. That's why your silence is not a weapon, it's wisdom. You don't use it to hurt him. You use it to heal yourself, to protect your energy, to create space for him to grow or for you to move on. Either way, you win, because you're no longer waiting for validation from someone who couldn't see your worth when it was right in front of them. Hebrew. Fear of loss is a teacher. It exposes what truly matters. If he really values you, he'll feel that fear and adjust. He'll step up, take accountability, fight to restore what he almost lost. But if he doesn't, if the distance doesn't move him, then that's your answer. You weren't valued, you were convenient. And convenience is not love. Ibraka, never beg for the bare minimum, never chase clarity from someone who confuses you. The most powerful thing you can do is step back and let him see what life feels like without your presence. If he's wise, he'll rise. If he's not, he'll fade. Either way, you remain in control.
A man only values what he fears losing, so make sure what he risks losing is truly worth something.
Your peace, your kindness, your loyalty, These are not traits to be given away endlessly. They are gifts that must be earned, protected, and respected. When you carry yourself like someone who can walk away at any time, you command attention without speaking a word. Because true power is not in chasing someone to stay. It's in being strong enough to leave. And that strength plants the deepest seed of all, the fear of regret. So stay grounded, stay silent, let distance reveal the truth. Because when he finally realizes what he lost, you'll already be standing taller, not waiting to be valued, but living as someone who knows her worth. Value isn't created through presence, it's revealed through absence. And the one who fears losing you the most is the one who never truly appreciated you until you were gone. There comes a point when words lose their power, when explanation becomes repetition and your voice starts to fall on ears that only hear what they want to. You realize then that silence, not speech, is your strongest response, because silence is not we. Ackness, it's command. It's the moment you stop chasing understanding and start demanding respect through your absence. Words are easy. Anyone can speak them, twist them, or ignore them. But silence exposes truth. It makes people confront the reality they've been avoiding. It forces them to feel the weight of their actions without you needing to justify your pain or your boundaries. When you go silent, you stop performing. You stop negotiating your worth. You let your absence speak in a language no one can argue with. Most people talk because they're afraid of being misunderstood. But the ones who've mastered control understand something deeper. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You just need to be clear with yourself. And when your boundaries are clear internally, your silence becomes louder than any confrontation could ever be. The power of silence lies in its discomfort. When you stop responding, people are forced to face the echo of their own behavior. They start replaying moments, replaying words, wondering what changed. They feel the emotional withdrawal not as punishment, but as consequence. And that's when learning happens. Because you don't teach people through arguments, you teach them through absence. When you no longer engage in chaos, the noise stops having control over you. Silence reclaims that control. It separates the mature from the reactive, the strong from the desperate. It's not indifference, it's self-mastery. You're no longer trying to fix, to prove, or to convince. You're simply saying, if my peace costs this connection, I'll pay the price. And that's the moment your value rises. Because people feel your silence in ways they never felt your words. They remember your energy, your patience, your consistency, and they realize what they lost. Words might have fallen flat before, but silence lingers. It makes them think, reflect, and regret. It turns the tables without a single confrontation. But to reach this level of strength, you have to detach from the need to be right. You have to stop explaining yourself to those who don't want to listen. You have to trust that the truth doesn't need defending. It reveals itself with time. That's what silence does. It separates those who understand your worth from those who only understood your availability. When you stop over-explaining, you stop giving people a map back into your piece. You start saying, if you didn't value me when I was trying, you'll learn through my distance. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. That's protecting your energy from being drained by situations that no longer deserve it. People don't forget silence. They remember it because it forces self-awareness. It makes them face themselves. They start to question, why isn't she responding? Did I go too far? Did I lose her for good? Those questions hurt, but that's where respect begins. Because nothing teaches accountability faster than the absence of forgiveness. Understand this. Silence is not the absence of communication. It's the highest form of it. It's saying, you already know what you did, and I'm not going to repeat the lesson. It's the final exam after every warning has been ignored. And those who truly care, they'll get it. They'll adjust. They'll come forward with sincerity, not excuses, but those who don't, they'll drift away. And you should let them. Your silence filters your world. It removes those who only thrive on your reaction. It exposes who was genuinely there for connection and who was there for control. It shows you who respects your peace and who only respected your access. A world that glorifies noise, silence is rebellion. It's saying, I choose inner strength over outward chaos. It's refusing to let emotional immaturity drag you into endless conflict. It's understanding that peace is power, and the one who holds peace holds control. Tibrokri, so don't fear silence. Don't rush to fill it with explanations, apologies, or justification. Let it breathe. Let it do the work your words couldn't. Because silence doesn't demand, it demonstrates, it doesn't beg, it builds respect. When someone loses your words, they lose the comfort of your presence. But when they lose your silence, when they realize you've moved on completely, that's when they finally understand. Because silence isn't about revenge, it's about revelation. It shows who's mature enough to reflect and who's too shallow to grow. Your silence teaches what your words never could, that your worth isn't up for debate, your energy isn't infinite, and your peace isn't negotiable. So speak less, observe more. Don't respond to disrespect, don't argue for validation. Let your composure say everything. Because the person who can remain silent under pressure, that's the one who truly owns their power. And in the end, those who were meant to learn from your silence will. The rest were never meant to hear you in the first place. Silence is not retreat, it's dominance. It's truth spoken through restraint. It's the sound of self-respect finally being heard. We live in a world that glorifies the chase. Constant texting, proving, performing, trying to convince someone to see your value. But the harder you chase, the faster real attraction slips away. Because pursuit creates pressure, not desire. True attraction isn't built through pursuit, it's built through presence, the kind that stands firm in self-respect, not desperation. Ibro Kriya, emotional independence is the highest form of confidence. It's the ability to feel whole even when someone doesn't validate you, to stay calm when they pull away, and to remain grounded when your emotions want to take control. When you operate from that place, you stop chasing love, and love begins chasing you.
Pursuit often comes from lack. It says, I need you to
Complete me. I need your attention to feel enough. That energy repels, not attracts, because people don't fall for the ones who demand company. Connection. They fall for the ones who embody it. The one who moves with quiet assurance. The one who doesn't need to be chosen to know worth. When you're emotionally independent, you no longer fear loss, and that's exactly why you become magnetic. People can feel when you're centered. They can feel when you don't need them to feel fulfilled. That balance creates mystery. It creates respect. Because you're no longer reaching out from emptiness, you're radiating from fullness. The truth is, the moment you stop chasing, you start standing out. Everyone can run after what they want. Few have the strength to wait, to walk away, to hold composure. That's power, and power is what fuels attraction far more than effort ever will. E. Brewer. Emotional independence doesn't mean coldness, it doesn't mean detachment, it means your happiness doesn't collapse when someone's affection does. It means your peace isn't held hostage by another's behavior. It's strength, quiet, poised, undeniable, the kind that doesn't need to speak loudly to be felt. You see, when you pursue someone too intensely, you remove their freedom to choose you. You force connection instead of allowing it. True desire only grows in space, not suffocation. When you're emotionally whole, you don't need to chase reassurance because your self-worth doesn't come from being wanted. It comes from being aligned with who you are. Abrasu's, a person who's emotionally dependent, says, I'll be okay when you love me, Rebra. A person who's emotionally independent says, I'm okay whether you love me or not. And ironically, the second one is the one people end up loving because strength, not need, creates attraction. Think about it. The people who draw you in most aren't the ones begging for your attention. They're the ones who seem untouchable, focused, confident, calm. They don't play games, but they're not desperate either. Their power lies in detachment, not because they don't care, but because they refuse to lose themselves caring too much. When you're emotionally independent, your energy shifts. You stop trying to control outcomes. You stop overgiving. You start matching effort instead of chasing it. You start listening to patterns instead of promises. And suddenly, people sense your strength. They know you can walk away at any time, and that unpredictability commands attention. True attraction thrives where respect lives, and respect only grows when both people stand on their own emotional feet, because when someone knows you don't need them, only choose them. That's when they feel safe, not pressured. That's when desire becomes sustainable. Emotional independence isn't selfish, it's essential. It protects your energy from becoming currency for validation. It allows you to love without losing yourself. It gives your relationships room to breathe, and that breathing room is where attraction grows. The paradox of love is simple. The more you chase it, the more it hides. The more you embody it, the more it finds you. When you make peace your priority, you stop attracting chaos. When you become whole, you stop magnetizing those who feed off emptiness. That's the spiritual gravity of emotional independence. It attracts people who are aligned, not those who drain. And make no mistake, the world feels your energy long before it hears your words. If you radiate neediness, people sense it. If you radiate strength, they respect it. If you radiate peace, they crave it. Because peace is rare, composure is rare, independence is rare, and rarity is always attractive. So stop trying to be understood by those who only value convenience. Stop chasing connections that need constant convincing. The right people won't need to be pursued. They'll recognize your energy and move closer naturally, because your presence alone becomes enough. Emotional independence is not about isolation. It's about elevation. It's rising above emotional chaos and reclaiming control over your inner world. It's walking with certainty that no matter who stays or goes, you remain whole. That's what makes you unforgettable. Because the truth is, nothing is more magnetic than someone who doesn't need to be noticed, someone who walks away without anger, someone who can love fully and still let go with grace. That's emotional independence, and that's where true attraction is born. Well, where you become the calm in the storm, the one who doesn't beg, doesn't break, doesn't chase, just stands tall in quiet confidence. And in that stillness, the world notices. The right people notice.